I always wanted to get close to anything we had. It's been a lifetime dream. Somehow, God, let me get a job somewhere where I can get my eyes on something that I ain't supposed to see. Please, please, let me get there. I have been close, and I count it a great honor and a privilege just to have worked out there in Nevada. Close. I worked with URS. I was a flight rated mechanic, one of only 2 out of 6 mechanics that took care of their airplanes out there at the Atlantic Terminal. For all of you that don't know, Janet, the one that they talk about on YouTube, that has the red stripe airplanes, my basic plane I worked with most of the time was 248. It's a model 600 series 737. Wow. Basically a general 37 aircraft with very minor modifications. Whenever we would fly into a restricted area, you have several things. You have what's called restriction, you have clearance, and you have proprietary zones, and you have prohibited zones. Okay? Part of the protocol of the education before you work within any clearance area, whether you're using a company license clearance or an individual clearance, you all have to have a certain amount of briefing education about protocols. Okay? And who's in charge? Let's use Area 51. It has a restrictive designation. Area 51 is nothing more than it's an air base there in the middle of the mountains, and it's been used for basically to keep our airplanes that were under development during the U-2. Started back with the U-2, of course. Went through the SR-71. Supposedly now the SR-75 is out there. Supposedly. And then now the UAV programs are really supposedly the big deal, the pilotless experimental stuff. Now here, let me tell you this. White Shoes Eddie told me that here's the way it works. Depending on what your job is, and there's a lot of jobs you don't know nothing about. There's a lot of people that get on those airplanes. You do not talk with other people in other groups as part of the protocol. Not an unfriendly thing, not a stress situation, it's just the rules. You break the rules, it's simple, you're out. You break them too bad, go into prohibited zones, or get out of restriction, and you're more than out of a job, you're arrested. Depends on the protocol. The people in charge at McCarran Airport out there in the Atlantic Terminal, it's where they park the Janet fleet, stands for just another non-existent terminal. Okay, that's what that slang word stands for, the acronym. Actually, it's URS Air. It's a corporation made up of ex-military generals, primarily, that had ends with the government and into the black operation. They knew who to talk to get the contract to buy the airplanes. Okay, that's where it all comes down to. Is no one who to talk to. These guys knew who to talk to. They had the background, had the clearance. Okay, they own the operation. Okay, they have we have 5 600s, or I'm not part of it anymore. We had White Shoes Eddie says they had 5 of the 600 series 737s, one older 200 series 737, and 2 turboprop aircraft, which was not actually part of White Shoes Eddie's operation. Okay, I was flight rated before I went there. I was working for another airline close by on the same place called White Shoes Eddie was working for Allegiant Air, and Allegiant Air one day, the guy came over, and my supervisor came over and talked to me and 2 other guys and said, we've got 6 guys on the list that they're needing help over across the field, and y'all look like they're interested. Wow, I didn't even apply for this deal. Never had put in any kind. I was working on contract through a company out of Florida for Allegiant, not directly for Allegiant, but as a contract technician, helping them out when they needed help. Was there for that. Got over there, and they checked all of us' history. Brief little deal, easy work. I was getting paid, and I'm sitting at a desk, you know, they're having us fill out these little forms. I thought, man, this air conditioning, I love this. Okay, sat there, filled out those papers, and me and one other guy from our group got hired on a temporary basis. They told us it'd be 30 days. Okay, Well, when the first 2 weeks, now we're going to be working there for 2 days, and we got 2 full weeks of protocol classes. Easy money. I loved it. Okay, now who's teaching the protocol classes? Walking Hut. Anybody ever heard of Walking Hut?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You know who Walking Hut answers to? I didn't even know this. Well, she's Eddie told me.
Well, there was a Walking Hut.
Halliburton.
They answer to the CIA out there. Yes, sir. The Walking Hut people are under the CIA. You know why? The reason is because the whole purpose for the creation of that particular area serviced by the URS fleet to carry people in and out is because it was set up for high altitude spy surveillance aircraft. International. Remember that. International, not domestic. If it was domestic, it would have probably been the FBI. But because it was international, and it also involved military, which guess what? They're all military. CIA. CIA's over everybody that works in security out there, perimeter or inside military, answer to the CIA. Big boys. Don't play no games. Our class instructor impressed me very much, and I'll hurry so we can talk. He blew my mind. The first night sitting in there was 10 of us. I didn't know the other guys except the one that worked with me. The first thing he did I never met this guy in my life, and he picked me. And the first thing he did is he come in and said, "Oh, hey, Alan, how's Gina?" Man, that guy knows my wife's name. I never met this dude. There was a message in that. Letting us know they were thorough. They looked at our paperwork. Didn't play no games with them. He was a Walking Hut guy, by the way, one of their supervisors. He taught the class on protocols. Okay, let me skip beyond all of that. The important thing is everybody that was in that class knew the rules. You wouldn't believe the stupid stuff I seen people get fired for. Unbelievable. Everybody knew the rules. When we were away from base, out, landed somewhere, what that was for, the only reason we ever had to go was for overnight release. What that is an aircraft when it's based overnight, one of these aircraft. It's part of the use arrangement with the government that aircraft must have a ground check signed off by a rated mechanic before the pilot takes the aircraft and flies it out, if it stayed overnight. It's called a RON check. That's what they call it. Remaining overnight. My job was to release aircraft on a RON check. Me and this one other guy. The rule was they would park us, the shades stay down until you land. You raise the shade, you're gone. You do not look out the shades of that airplane. They're not locked. They used to be. They used to put these little tabs. But it was a problem for the mechanics to check the windows, so they took the tabs off because couldn't do the RON check without never one. Everything had to be, certain things had to be checked, and cabin security was one of them. Anyway, I'm giving you good information here, guys. There's a risk to this. I'm under non-disclosure contract for life. Many of you are, and you probably don't even realize it. Some of you that were in the military, at one point or another, you signed what's called a disclosure contract. Some of those contracts have lifetime non-limitation. You're still under it. I just happen to know because I've had to sign a bunch of them. Doesn't matter if you're sweeping the floor, working on an airplane, or looking at who knows what. Got to sign it. Okay. We had a rule when we would land. No one exited the aircraft until they brought the little buses around. Now the guy that's on YouTube that talks about working on the TR3, I watched his stuff real close. He talks about goggles. I don't know why, but none of these guys ever had to wear the goggles. Now his group that he talks about on YouTube left Nellis by land route on the buses. They may have had to wear goggles when they got off, the kind that blur your vision to get where they're going. But what they did here, they parked, the 37s would park behind, they have two big regular aircraft hangars left over from back when they was doing U-2s. They've been there for a long time. They got some new facilities that you can see on some of the satellite images that show other new buildings. But you can see these two particular hangars. They would park us behind it. You cannot see anything on the field from that location. The only thing you could get a glimpse of is if something's coming in out on the runway. Don't happen. Every test flight is scheduled during blackout period. Blackout period is when nobody is coming in or going out. All people coming in and going out are according to schedules where there's nothing going on. Nothing is going to be seen by people going in and out because they're not going to fly it during that time. And if they fly it, it's at time when nobody's in transit, nobody's walking in between buildings. It's all compartmentalized. Stay with your group, according to your rules. My rules on the ground for the overnight check, I had to stay in the airplane within 10 feet. If I had to go to the restroom, I had to go into the lab on the airplane. I could not go out to the building. I could run the APU to run air conditioning. The APU is the little engine that starts the engines. And it also runs air conditioning and electric power. And it was part of our checks. We had to run the APU in order to check systems. The only thing is, during a certain zone, they had a light on the back of the building. We were supposed to know if that light's on, you don't even run the APU and you have no lights on. Never explained why, it's just the rule. We had our own ideas, but one guy I worked with got fired and I didn't even know it quickly. This will be the last story. White Shoes Eddie was on the airplane. He was up in the front and we're looking at checking off stuff he checked on the airplane. Looks out the window. His buddy that was working with him, I won't mention his name, knew the rules. Go to the airplane on the airplane. He decides all of a sudden that he wants to go to a cool restroom, so he thinks he's just going to go in the back of this hangar and go into a restroom. I don't know what got into the guy. You know better. I didn't see him do this. I knew he was going to go to the restroom, and I said, okay, cool. There it is. You know, when you get through, come back. So I know now why he told me he was going to the restroom. He meant he was going to go off the airplane and go. I didn't know it at the time. Anyway, I'm up there with the clipboard, similar to this, checking off items on the RON checks, about 3 pages long, item by item. And he was supposed to sign off about a page and a half of that stuff. And I'm missing him. 3 hours and he don't show up. Where'd this guy go? He left the 10-foot perimeter where we're supposed to stay within 10 feet of the structure of the airplane. Never get beyond 10 feet of the outside structure of the airplane. He got outside that. They arrested him. When I got back to Vegas the next day, a bunch of my co-workers came out. What happened? I don't know. I had to sign off his paperwork. I don't know what happened. They said, yeah, they come got the supervisor. Found out after it was all over and said and done. They turned him over to the federal marshal. Out the perimeter, wherever they drive to. I don't know. Some of you guys know more about that than I do. But they took him somewhere and turned him over, not to the sheriff. The federal marshal had to drive out to get him all the way from Vegas, over 100 miles. I bet he wasn't in a good mood. They kept him at the federal office, at the federal marshal's office. I don't know if they had a cell or if they had him locked in a room, until the supervisor come and signed a federal court citation saying that the company would represent itself in federal court for the violations this employee made. That dude, his toolboxes beat him out the door. I want to tell you, he was gone. Funniest story. Wasn't funny at the time because I had to go back and do his work for him, and it was a hurried deal because I had a schedule. I logged 23 logged out flights in and out of the area. What she's in, he did. And never saw a thing that I could report. But I do know some procedure, and I'm sharing some procedure with you that I don't think will get me in a lot of trouble. I've always wanted people to be honest with me and tell me things if they knew it. That's how we gather information. That's how we start to put the real picture together. We all got ideas about what we think's going on out there. The only way we'll ever know what is really going on is when somebody really tells us. Now, I don't know about Phil, the fellow that got murdered, Phil Schneider. Y'all know about Phil? Y'all know about Phil Schneider? Oh, check out Phil Schneider on YouTube. Interesting story. He got murdered. Dude, I mean, this is a big guy. Looks like he could defend himself. They found him in his backyard choked with a water hose. This ain't no little guy. He's as big as me and you. He looked like, you know, take a couple of guys to. This was a pro operation. This wasn't kids or something trying to break in the house choking that guy with a water hose. He said too much. Make your own judgment. Remember the name. Phil Schneider. Contractor. Underground bases. I hadn't got a clue about any of that information other than what Phil said on YouTube. Check out Phil Schneider. Okay. What I want to do now, I had more, you know, on stigma. Y'all get the idea, right? Let's talk about it. Questions and also comments. In our last few minutes here, what have I got, Kathy? How much time we have to discuss?
Till 9 o'clock.
Huh?
Yeah, you're good.
You're okay.
Okay, all right. Let's start discussion. Can you remember, let's keep our questions in context. There's a lot of things I don't know about UFO phenomenon research. Research, everyone's kind of his own specialist, you see. And I'm interested in a lot of things. And I can only myself respond to things I know. So we're going to open it up to the whole group. If a question is asked and you know the answer, kind of raise your hands a little bit if you want to give a response. And I'll kind of be the mediator up here since I'm up here. And before we turn it back for closing to Robert. And so who's got a question related to stigma, a UFO experience, or maybe had a problem with something that you don't quite know how to deal with in the public that we can share in discussion?
I had a question for you.
Yeah. Good night.
Your sightings as a kid, how long did they last? How many years did they last?
Okay, this was on a cool fall morning. I had already had experiences that had nothing to do with my sighting, that I didn't know what it was all about at all. Wasn't looking for anything. I was like, we stayed at my grandmother's. We all lived up there in the same general area. And on weekends, it was the thing for us to go over to our grandparents' house. Our grandparents lived within like a mile and a half of each other, all out in the sawmill country. At that time, that's the industry that was going on up there. My dad happened to work in the freight industry at the time. On weekends, we would go, and we had spent the night on a Friday night. And as kids then, what we would do is we would get up and we would go outside and play while we waited on breakfast or whatever. Usually our first priority was to go play. And it was like a dirt road, a sand road actually, called Otis Road there in Jasper, Texas. Jasper got a bad rap about a deal in the media here a while back. It's a good community, really, good people up there. Just had some bad apples. But anyway, that's the town it was, and this was out from town. And what it did, my brother Fred, a younger brother, went out in front of the house to play. They have a porch area. And the road was only about as far as the front window of the restaurant over there. Okay, so I went out to the road. There was not a lot of traffic. You could see cars coming from both ways, but there was very little traffic, maybe one every few hours. Only a few farmhouses or just that type of sparse population. So it wasn't unusual for kids to play in the road. I went out and I was about to play in the sand. You know how kids do at a beach? They make stuff in the sand, sand castles and whatever. Well, I was going to do something in the sand. And I bent over and was reaching down to the sand when a bell went off inside my head. I don't know how to make sense of that. But I heard the bell, I felt it. It was like right in the middle of my head, not through my ears, but like in the middle of my head. And I somehow knew the tone, even though it didn't come through my ears. You know, your nerves work how? I mean, I'm not a physician, but I heard it just as though it had came through my ears. And my body was being controlled by something. Now, I can't explain the feeling I felt, other than say it was the most comfortable feeling I ever felt in my life. I was so tranquilized. I was feeling awesome, very euphoric. And my body was just responding without me telling it what to do. I know now that was outside influence controlling it, but at the time as a child, it was just my body responding. And what happened is I got up like this. I was looking south, and my body turned 180 degrees, and my head raised up like this. And there, to the north, about 35 degrees altitude, was a vertical cylinder-looking device. that looked like a giant butane tank turned on its side, is how I would have described it then. Only it was gray. It was not shiny gray, it was a dull gray. It was fairly large, a few hundred feet at about 35 degrees altitude above the tree line there to the north in front of me. And it was shape-shifting. As a child, 5 years old, I never saw anything like this. Obviously. Nobody else had either. And out of the side came an appendage that looked like a piping conduit looking thing with a big ball on the end of it, and it was doing this. That sort of motion, like it was reclocking itself. About 10-degree increment movements, about every 10 seconds or so, resetting itself. Out of the top came out some kind of weird looking, I hate that word weird, scratch that, a unique looking, weird's a word that UFO phenomenon people don't like to use. Weird and strange, I like to eliminate from my vocabulary. Anyway, this antenna looking appendage, reverse of what a normal parabola would be. We've all seen satellites, dishes. This was in reverse. Technically how something like that would work, what function it would serve, I haven't got a clue. I know it was hanging on the side of this object I was looking at. Now this machine, whatever it was in free navigation position right there above me as a child. And I stood looking at it, didn't try to move, don't know if I could have or not. Fixed on this thing for, in reality, probably 15 to 20 seconds in that position. In reality, within that time frame. Coming from the east, turning toward north to west, was a flying object. Now this object was just standing there doing partial movement. This object looked like a big puffy wing. No ports, no external systems of propulsion that I could see, no vapor trails, no landing gear, no windows. Just a big V looking white, off-white, sort of beige, with a fog looking envelope around it, which I guess was some sort of force field. I don't know. I saw this thing doing an aerobatic maneuver. It was actually making a turn, a controlled turn, without any sound. I heard no wind. Now I'm giving you a detailed report. I'm telling you the details. Okay? I heard nothing. It came across this other craft. Apparently, I could make my own assumptions about what was going on, but it left. This one looked like it might be protecting me. I don't know. I don't know what it was doing. But when it came and made its turn, the other one left in a hurry. And the way it left was in an erratic vertical flight path. And what it did, I watched it as it went up out of sight. It went this way, then it went that way, and then straight up. And I watched it get little and disappear. This was a good sized object. The other craft flew right in front of me. Right along the same level, about 35 degrees up, through northwestward. I watched it disappear to the west. If that's not enough, why did I see all this at one time? I haven't got a clue. I'm thankful I did. This was the good part of my encounters. Some of the others are not so good. But this one was good. As I'm getting ready, I don't feel anything anymore. I'm free to move, to run in the house like any 5-year-old would do, and make his report to his parents about what he's seeing, these neat things. Before I leave, I catch a glimpse of something that I have seen in lots of UFO magazines. I have never saw the first two objects. The first machine object, and I do call it a machine, and the second machine object, the only thing close to the second one, and I mean close, not exact, is the one that the guy seen flying out there over the mountains, the one that first reported saucers. The one in his airplane, what was his name? Anyway, you know who I'm talking about?
Arnold?
Is it Arnold? The one who was doing the airplane that first started the UFO report. Yes, Kenneth Arnold, that's it. The wing was similar to the drawing that he had, except there was no canopy, but similar. And his was a little more aerodynamic. This one was puffy. Didn't look like something that would fly fast, but I want you to know it could move. And I didn't hear any wind. Now listen, this is the guy that's got a pilot license talking to you. I'm an advanced ground instructor rated. Let's back up things. I got a few federal aviation license here.